We do have saboteurs. Around the country, people blame politicians for all sorts of things that are not working well. Yet, we have people who are just appointees of government, who sabotage the laudable objective of parliament. Mr. President, I watched in the news when you led a delegation to visit a Nigerian refinery that is capable of producing diesel of appropriate standard. The decision, therefore, by the management of that's paragraph 5, aware that NMDPRA has persistently continued to issue import licenses of diesel and jet despite sufficient local production capacity. Mr. President, this is sabotage. Real sabotage of the Nigerian nation, endangering jobs, good paying jobs of Nigerians who are working in these refineries to produce this product. The much advertised benefit of local refining, which NNPC has used time and time again to pump all sorts of money into maintenance of Nigerian refineries. Now we have refineries that are working. And a Nigerian who believes in the future of our country at a time when the pressure of foreign exchange is so strong that the naira is plummeted every day. A Nigerian finds comfort in the words of in this particular paragraph to continue to issue licenses for the importation of substandard, dangerous chemicals in the name of diesel. I agree absolutely that we need to have a strong, well-paneled ad hoc committee to carry out thorough investigation and to investigate the leadership of the institution that is responsible for issuing these licenses. Mr. President, until we begin to punish, dismiss, and prosecute people who are undermining our collective well-being, we continue to smile away. I do not believe that these are errors of the head. I believe the gentleman or gentlemen involved in this are doing it on purpose to collect rents for their pocket and undermine the economy of Nigeria. Your visit to Lagos was very well appreciated because the parliament must see what is going on in different parts of the country. So I support this motion and I plead with my colleague that in unison, we should condemn the idea of importing diesel, which many of us, we have to agree we are part of the middle or ruling class now. We all have diesels in our house. We are being poisoned by the product being imported by someone or some persons who want to enrich their pocket. So I think this is one motion that all of us should adopt unanimously and empower the committee and give them all the political backing they need to do the needful.
An individual in Nigeria was patriotic enough to build a refinery, and you have been there, I was not there. He complained that if he had known that he would go through what he has gone through, he wouldn't have started that patriotic and giant project. Yet, he said he's not the person that gives up. He clearly said that the IOCs are frustrating his efforts. Last week or so, fire caught part of the refinery. But fortunately, it has not affected the refinery so much. But coming back to my question.
Point of order.
Okay.
Point of order.
The investigation as suggested by our colleague should be holistic, very holistic. And that is also to involve why somebody is producing diesel in the country and he had to go out to look for foreign market to sell the product. On the other hand, polluted or toxic diesel is being imported into the same Nigeria. These are questions that the committee should actually find out, investigate. And as my chairman suggested, those involved should actually be brought to book so that this kind of thing that is going in and killing our country should not repeat itself. That you will extend my time of contribution.
Extended.
Having said that, recently, the Dangote Refinery started production of diesel. But he had to sell it out. He has to export it. Because he has to go through a process to supply, to make that supply, to make the diesel available in Nigeria.
Ad hoc committee must sit day to day and bring the report back to us before we go on the long break. Because we can't just set up a committee that will sit ad infinitum. This is too important to the economy of the country. It's important to the health of the citizens of this country, and it's also important to job retention in the country and job creation. So we must look at these things. And like somebody said, even if this August Assembly has to make recommendation that some heads should rule within the petroleum industry, so be it. Leader of the Senate.
I begin by thanking you, Mr. President, for the privilege to also be able to take part in this very patriotic debate. And my contribution will be short, Mr. President. First, it is important that we make this clear to members of the Nigerian public that the concern of the Senate in this regard, it's primarily one about our economy, because we feel that in a situation where it looks like an economy is being held by the jugular, as elected representatives of the Nigerian people, we must stand up to be able to do the needful. Primarily as well, this is also about issues that border on public health. When hazardous petroleum products are imported into a country, diesel, jet fuel, and all that, it has three significant implications. One, negative impact on public health, which by extension leads to a reduction in the lifespan of the citizens of the country, whose health are negatively impacted on, especially their respiratory system. Number two, it also has significant impact on the environment. Number three, Mr. President, it's also about protection of properties. People struggle to save money to buy their cars. Some even buy these cars with bank loan. Companies struggle to buy official cars. Institutions, including government institutions, buy vehicles for official use. When, less of a quality petroleum product is used, it leads to an early, destruction of the engines of these vehicles, including also its negative impact on our industrial sector. Diesel is used to run industrial machines. So when you bring in, substandard petrol or diesel, what you're also saying is that you are killing, those industrial machines, you are killing the industrial sector. So all of these are issues of significance that make it essential for us as a Senate to holistically look into these issues. Finally, Mr. President, if we have been told as a nation that our refineries were under repair and over $4 billion had been invested in this by government at different times, and we have been given different dates when these refineries will be up and running, and none of those dates had worked, I think it is important for us as elected representatives of the people to be able to bring NNPC and their contractors to ask the question, what is going on? When will these refineries be ready? And it's not just about completion of refineries, because that's a technical term, but come and tell the Nigerian people through us about the start-up dates for these refineries. These are issues, Mr. President, that we need to take into serious consideration. So I am totally in support of this motion, and I want to thank again the single Senator Asuku Ekpeyon for bringing the motion, and to emphasize that at the end of the day, as a nation, we must appreciate the fact that we are not safe until we are able to locally refine our crude. For as long as we continue to rely on importation, it will be difficult for even the regulatory framework, based on how it is set up, to be able to determine the quality of petroleum products that are imported. It is important that we get our local refineries to work. It's also essential that whichever local refinery that we have now must be saved from collapse and frustration. I thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the issue of oil and gas in this country is something that we should not just take as business as usual. There are quite a lot of issues in this industry. And oil today has been the lifeware of our economy. Virtually every sector, when you looked at it, what happens in that industry has a lot of implication on the others. Today you can see the spite of cancer in this country is to do with the pollution we have in this country. The pollution is too high. Notwithstanding that, if we looked at the PIA itself, the Petroleum Industry Act itself, Mr. President, there is need for the National Assembly to take and have another look at that act. The powers arrogated to somebody is enormous, that a lot of things are not going right. If we have unbundled NNPC, then some people should be held responsible for not doing what they're supposed to do. But we have unbundled NNPC, but also at the same time tie their hands and they cannot do anything. We have somebody that has been very courageous, just as the deputy leader said. Dangote established a refinery, and which is almost the biggest refinery today in the world. Nobody is encouraging him. Nothing is being done to encourage him. He has to go to the United States to buy crude oil. Our Nigerian crude oil is one of the best when it is refined. We have so many things in it. He will pay for this crude oil. He will not even get it as at when he wanted it. So what are we doing to ourselves? And we keep importing something that will kill us for the sake that few people want to make more money. So, Mr. President, my view is that it's not only to checkmate what is happening as by the importation of oil in this country, fuel in this country, but we should look at the PIA itself. We are past the PIA. Can we now tell Nigerians that, or can NNPC tell us that we have had more than $300 million investment in this country from the time that we have enacted that law to now? When a country like Gabon, Angola are having investments coming in, even Ghana here, we're over $12 billion, and nothing is coming to Nigeria. I think there is need for us to look at the PIA, make the necessary review if we want our oil and gas industry to blossom. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues, Sunday Marshal Katung, I represent the people of Kaduna South Senatorial District. I rise to second this well laid out motion. The motion has been adequately argued. Justification for the investigation also clearly stated. The prayers are well defined. And because it is an investigative motion, Mr. President, I don't want us to preempt the issues. As justifiable as it is, I will urge that all of us support this motion and leave the investigative panel to come out with the results. Then we can come back and apply appropriate sanctions as recommended by the committee. That's the advice I want to proffer. That because it is an investigative motion, that we minimize the amount of argument, because all of us seem to be in sync and supportive of the motion. That is my kind advice, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
In line with your advice.
President, my name is Senator Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central. Mr. President, let me join you and others in commending Senator Asuku for a well-researched, eloquently delivered, brilliantly presented motion on this particular matter. It is important, Mr. President, to highlight the summary of this motion. And the summary of this motion precisely gives us the tragic history, the tragic history of Nigeria as a nation. As an oil-producing nation for 50 years or thereabout, this nation is still battling with the issue of auditing, the issue of sampling, and the issue of fault validation. In other climes across the world, these are given, but because we're a nation that has not shown any capacity, any seriousness, especially in this sector that we all depend on.
And that's why we're having issues within the industry. Finally, Mr. President, if this is what the 10th Senate will achieve in its 4 years existence going forward, if this is the only thing that the 10th Senate will achieve, please, for God's sake, let's try to achieve it. Let's show Nigerians that it's not business as usual. Let's understand the perception outside there. Let's do what you can do and do everything in the open to satisfy skeptics about the 10th Senate. It is important that we recognize the issues raised. And it is very imperative that once we can achieve the objectives of this motion, I am sure history will recall the 10th Senate as an achiever. It is important for those who will be in this ad hoc committee to understand Nigerians have a question mark about what we can do or we cannot do. But sufficiently, the Constitution has given us powers to be able to delve into issues like this and bring about positive change and positive transformation. I so move, and I think everybody should support this motion. It is not late in coming. It is imperative that we understand the dynamics as it is. It is important to make a difference, and it is important to show Nigerians that we meant what we said. Thank you very much.
Senator Olamile.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of Federal Republic. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, let me also join others in commending the mover of this motion. And Mr. President, let me start by saying that when we passed the Petroleum Industrial Act, the main objective of passing that bill into law was to achieve one major thing, and which is for us to unbundle the oil and gas sector. We did that successfully during the night Senate. We have an act in place that unbundled the entire oil and gas sector, with the hope and the belief that by unbundling this sector, the country will be better off than what we usually have in the past. And to that extent, we created a separate agencies under the upstream sector and the downstream sector. And also, we ensure that we have an NNPC that can compete favorably well with other oil and gas sector all over the world. But Mr. President, with this singular motion that is before us this afternoon, is a clear indication that it seems what we hope to achieve by passing this act, this bill into law, we are not seeing it at all. Because in the body of the motion, it is clear that the only agency of the government that bringing this diesel or this petroleum product is only the NNPC PLC or Limited. And if that is the case, I wonder how the same agency of the government will import into the country adulterated diesel. So this is a very serious allegation that I strongly believe demands a very, very strong committee and investigation to look into it. Mr. President, if you look at line by line of this motion that is before us, it is clear that even quoting the date where each of these transactions takes place is enough for us to look into this sector. Not only this motion alone, as we have said while sitting, that there have been promises upon promises that our refinery will come on board at so period, at so time, and billions of dollars has been spent on this refinery. Mr. President, I want to say that we demand and we need a major reform. Head must roll in the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation and even other agencies of the government that are saddled with this responsibility. Because all these allegations is just one out of the numerous investigations we have to do in this sector. So I will be imploring that we should do an holistic investigation. Because by the time we start treating this motion at the committee level, there will be other issues that will come up. So we must mandate the committee that will be handling this to make sure, at least, because look at the challenges we have. There are more information that is known to us that we cannot even share here. NNPC, Nigeria upstream and downstream, needs to be investigated, and the investigation must be holistic. Nigeria must know the true position about these agencies of the government that have been saddled with the responsibility of running our oil and gas sector. Thank you, Mr. President. So submit.
Gone through this motion, and paragraph 3 of this motion showed that the mover of this motion has given us all the information, activity to activity, date by date. The implication of this motion, especially in paragraph 3, is that it will definitely assist in real time the ad hoc committee that will be constituted. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I just want to have a personal I just want to beg you personally that everything that is the constituted ad hoc committee will require, that will enable us get to the root of this unwholesome activity, that you must give all the necessary support to it, sir. This is an infraction, this is criminal, this is not in the interest of this country. And I beg